The following conversation discusses a number of topics. They include, but are not limited to, the challenges of motherhood, ethical responsibilities, how a smile can change your day, and the feeling of becoming a parent. If you want to check out the specific timestamps, you can look in the description below for them. This episode features Colleen McShea. McShea is a Penn State University alum who, just a few years ago, had plans of entering the workforce and putting her degree to use. After learning that she was expecting just a few months after graduation, her plans quickly changed. She is now a mother to her 1-year-old son Liam and is passionate about sharing the joys of motherhood that modern society often overlooks, and the sense of purpose and fulfillment raising a family can bring to one's life. If you enjoy this conversation, enjoy the content, I please ask you to 1, rate and subscribe on your preferred platform, whether that be Spotify, YouTube, Apple. And if you enjoy this conversation, I just please ask for you to share it with a friend. Thank you. Welcome to the show, Colleen. Pleasure to have you here today, and I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, awesome to have you. And I really appreciate how our conversation and this episode came to be from some of the posts that you put out on social media about motherhood, the contemporary look about family, starting a family, and that gauged my interest because I kind of feel it as well. But since you are a mother yourself and have your own family, I feel like you most likely feel it more and also see it more. So
Yeah.
I would like to ask is, when did you become a mother and how has it been since that moment has arrived?
So I became a mother unexpectedly. We went to Penn State together. So I
Hmm.
graduated in 2020. And, that was like the height of the pandemic. So the world was kind of going crazy. And I held off on going into the workforce because of that and ended up a few months later finding out that I was pregnant. So it was pretty unexpected and, turned my world
Hmm.
upside down, changed my path, changed my plans. And being pretty young, I was 23 at the time. It's like kind of sets you in panic mode. Like, what am I going to do? Um, but since becoming a mother a year and a half ago, my son is a year and a half now, it's turned out to just be the most incredible experience. Just everything about it has brought me so much purpose and fulfillment and has ended up being such a blessing, although an unexpected one. So it's
Hmm.
been so awesome.
Nice. Well, first off, congratulations.
Thank
That's,
you.
yeah, amazing story. And then to kind of dive deeper in that, what have you seen as a young mother, speaking to say other young mothers or expecting young mothers possibly listening to this? What would
Mhm.
you say has been some of the most rewarding parts of your journey so far?
Oh, there's so much that goes into it. I mean, being a mom is a full-time job. And then, again, if you work outside of the home as well, then it's like double time. So it can be
Hmm.
extremely taxing, like mentally, physically, like it's exhausting a lot of the time. But at the end of the day, whether it's been a good day, a bad day, just a smile from your child can just turn everything around because you may feel like you're failing that day as a mom in your work in whatever aspect of life, but then when they look at you and you see that they're happy and you can just see on their face how much they love and adore you, it's like everything else just washes away, nothing else matters. And I think
Hmm.
that's important for um, young women or any woman that was in my position of being in finding out they're pregnant, being in that position unexpectedly, because until you experience that as a mother, you don't understand, um, you know, how that affects you, and that it's going to be hard. But regardless, just seeing that on your child's face and knowing how much they love you, it
Hmm.
just means all the world. It makes your day so much better and easier.
Yeah. And one of the words that you mentioned was job, full-time job. How do
Mhm.
you how do you feel the perception is with being a, say, full-time mother in society when that's like mentioned and some of the things that you have seen on social media? How does that kind of tie into this what really sparked our conversation here today?
Yeah. So again, being a full-time mother, it is exhausting. There's no way around that. There's no sugarcoating that.
Mhm,
But a lot of times on social media, especially these days, I see things that like make me almost sad. I saw a thing on TikTok, which I think I mentioned to you. It ended up being like a trend that this one girl on TikTok started a list of all the reasons not to have kids, not to become a mom. And
mhm,
then this list goes on and on and on. And some of the things are so minuscule, like a tiny inconvenience in a day that, regardless of what you do, you're going to experience those kinds of things. So it just made me sad to see,
mm,
I know being a mom is not for everybody, and that's okay. But I felt like this person was almost trying to deter people that may have wanted to be or had aspirations to be a mom, and deterring them from doing so, or like scaring them almost,
mhm.
which made me really sad because again, it's hard to explain to somebody that hasn't experienced it yet, but once you do, it's one of the most amazing things in the world.
And which
So go ahead.
no, continue. I was please continue.
Yeah, no, I just think social media can be a blessing and a curse for that reason. Um, because it's just amazing. And I think that there's such a stigma with social media right now that like everybody wants to show this like perfect reel of their life when in reality, nobody's life is perfect. And I think people put kids and having a family as like a barrier to this perfect life that you need to live, when in
Mhm.
reality it's kind of what life's all about, is having a family and
Yeah.
raising the next generation.
I really admired and felt something that you said when you were talking about regardless of whether you have a family or not, you're gonna have these inconveniences. And that kind of got me thinking, well, I don't think anyone would dispute or contest that having a family is meaningful. And if you're going to have these inconveniences in your daily life and these struggles in your daily life, wouldn't you rather them be for a meaningful and purposeful reason instead of just for something that doesn't matter too much in the grand scheme of things?
Right, absolutely.
And what you mentioned with that trend, would you say that was more so just was there any good faith act like kind of approach to it where like highlighting some things to be aware of? Because you'll see like trends on social media where it's like before you do this, no X, Y, and Z. And it seems more helpful.
Hmm.
The way you described it seemed more so as you even said the word like scaring, deterring people as to becoming starting a family or becoming a mother.
Yeah. So I didn't follow the trend beginning to end. There were a
Mhm,
multitude of videos that went on and on to continue it and to add things to the list. So there is a possibility that maybe she started it with a video like that. Maybe like things you should know before you decide to have kids. But then to me personally, it did seem like it became almost, then people were just adding such like unimportant things that, again, you will experience inconveniences in any area of your life. And it was just like,
mhm.
oh, add this, add this, add this, like, and just went on and on and on. It almost became a joke, it seemed to some people.
Yeah.
But it could, if someone doesn't understand that or misconstrues it, it could definitely deter them because it's a running really long list of all the reasons.
Mhm. And from your approach, I could see why that would specifically kind of stick with you because you have obviously probably seen some of those reasons as you mentioned, but you've also seen the fruitful parts of it. And I can definitely understand and the frustration that comes with only hearing one side when you know both sides, and you know that that person probably understands both sides too, to a certain extent. And then that's where you think the person's a bad faith actor because they're intelligent enough to understand both sides of the argument or both sides of the issue.
Right.
Mhm,
Yeah, I mean, I would hope that that's not the case. That's what I seem to get from it, though. That's how it kind of snowballed into that quickly.
mhm. And this was obviously more than just one like person, one video. This is something you've seen for
Oh
quite some
yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah. I've seen it quite a few times.
And I would like to get your thoughts on this. Been thinking about this for quite a while, which is a lot of these people, say mothers, but also men, but I see a lot more with women. And talking to you now, I would like to get your feedback on it, which is like putting off families and putting off becoming a mother in pursuit of more like say career oriented goals, which is admirable. Like I could see that being admirable. I can understand where that's coming from. I can share some of that as well. But there's very same people who speak in that tone and speak with that language of saying not seeing any kind of purpose in becoming a mother or starting a family. Let's just say starting a family. There are
Hmm.
also people who generally on the left, I would say, that's kind of like the vibe I get more. And if someone would say, well, how are you measuring that? Well, I would measure it through like liberals, people on the left, more progressive, more open to ideas. Conservatives are more traditional, more family oriented, more status quo. So that's how I'm measuring it. But with that, what I see is people more on the left who are doing this and advocating for this, like less of a family, like nuclear family kind of goal or just any kind of aspiration to one day. And when I say nuclear family, I just mean two parents and children. But these people tend to be on the left leaning, I see, and simultaneously they're also argue against a capitalism in certain cases, which I could understand and agree with. But then they're also working for these large corporations, which are ultra capitalistic, uber capitalist, working for these people who don't really care about like them, seeing them as a cog in the machine, whether
Right.
that be this humongous firm or director of this organization. And yet they're on the left, they're like more towards socialism, more towards this. But it's like you're it's almost like the ultra rich, ultra wealthy, uber capitalistic person. You're their best, like you're their best dream. You're their ideal person who has convinced themselves that working for them is being more on the left and is being quote unquote freeing. But simultaneously, you're still giving your life away. You're still dedicating your life. You're just dedicating it to someone else who doesn't really care about you. So I'm curious
Right.
about your thoughts, and that's something that's been on my mind for quite some time. I still need to refine it as I know as I talked for quite a few minutes.
No, that's okay because it is kind of like a complex thought because I think like pulling I don't want to say pulling mothers out of the home because there are a
Hmm.
lot of mothers, parents, like you said,
Yeah.
parents, not just moms. Um, Getting them out of the home then in turn allows them to or forces them to have to put their child into whatever it is, daycare, possibly school. And,
Hmm.
I worked at a daycare in college. There were some 6 week old babies that were there from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. some days. So, really, somebody else at that point is kind of raising your child.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know. A lot of people say that this is purposeful, that they want parents out of the home for that reason, so they can be more impressionable upon people's children. I hope that's not the case. But I do believe that um, whether you believe in whatever it is, God, evolution, the purpose of humans is to procreate and create another generation and raise that generation up
Hmm.
to be successful and healthy. Um, and people of course find fulfillment in work because you can make a difference at your job and you
For
can
sure.
change the world. And those are all great things. But at the end of the day, I think that the family is just the center of life and should be treated as such because
Hmm.
without it, I mean, I know personally without it, I don't know what I'd do without my family, without my child. I mean, it's everything to me. And I actually, shortly after you invited me to be on the podcast, I saw this quote from, his name's Harrison Butker.
Hmm.
He's a player on the Chiefs, I believe. He has 2 Super Bowl rings, and he was speaking at a graduation of some college. And I'm just going to quote him here. Some things he said that really stuck out to me, where he was talking about, the money, the success, as in his Super Bowl rings. He said, "None of it will matter if you are alone and devoid of purpose. I'm not sure the root of this, but at least I can offer one controversial antidote that I believe will have lasting impact for generations to come. Get married and start a family. None of these accomplishments mean anything compared to the happiness I found in my marriage and in starting a family." And not only do I agree with that, but it especially stuck out to me because he is somebody that does something he loves for a living. Like, he plays football for a living.
Hmm.
That's what he loves to do. And there's tons of people that are stuck in these dead end jobs that they're not happy doing. And, they'd rather do anything but they feel like they have to, or maybe they do have to for financial reasons. But it does make me sad, because I think that having, whether it's getting married or just being with family and having children, does bring the deepest purpose in life.
Hmm. And I mean, that gets me thinking too, when you mentioned like family being the center in life, and you do believe if it's possible for that family to have children or to start a family, whether that be adopt, to whatever the couple situation is, that's you should do that. And shouldn't, and it's something I was thinking too to myself, like it shouldn't just be an expectation as well. It should be an achievement. And that's kind of what I was trying to view it through, because expectations, well, especially when your parents set, like they can almost repulse you to what you towards that expectation, because it feels like if you don't live up to it, you're just letting them down, say.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's why I think like starting a family shouldn't be like expectation. You shouldn't like have people expect you to go to college or expect you to do well in school. Like I at least doing well in school, like that makes sense. But like going to college, things like that. And then if you don't, there's this laying someone down. But I think kind of like switching the framing on how people view starting a family. Like personally, I view starting a family as an achievement. If it, hopefully if it is like the right case under the right conditions, of
Absolutely.
someone, that's gonna be stable, someone you love, and you can provide a good home for that child. I find that as an achievement in your personal life and something that no one or nothing in this world could take away from. And when you mentioned ethical, like kind of responsibility, people would contest that. People would contest pretty much what we're both saying right now, and
Yeah.
call us a this or that. But those same people would also advocate strongly for environmentalism and say, which I'm not in disagreement with, but those people would strongly advocate for environmentalism, saying that we all have this ethical responsibility to save the planet. Well, saving the planet also is on the contingency that people are here to live it on the planet too. And with,
Yeah.
falling populations and declining populations, especially in, not the US is doing okay, not the best. It's comparatively to like Japan. But
Hmm.
yeah, like is that not part of that ethical responsibility too? And there's a lot of caveats to this, if the conditions are right, if the couple can, all this stuff, say all those things are matched, is there not some, and it's a question too, I don't really know, but I think it's one worth asking, like, is there
Hmm.
not like an ethical responsibility too to like start a family in some capacity? And I know that everyone can't, and people that want to who can't, and that's tough. I'm not trying to be cruel in what I say here. I'm just saying that the same people who would contest what we're saying about starting a family, and what you're saying mainly, as you have done it, start a family, how it's purposeful now, you have seen it as this rewarding aspect that people should aspire to do. Those are the same people who are calling for ethical responsibilities in other areas of life too.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard. I mean, I don't know a ton about, the whole environmentalist
Mhm.
stuff. I definitely have to like look into that more, I guess, to have um a strong opinion on it.
Mhm. It's more so
But
saying people who are just saying we have to save the planet, like we have to take care
right.
of the environment to save ourselves. I'm not pointing to any one issue or another, just
No,
the,
absolutely.
the sentiment.
Right. Um, yeah, I mean, are you like ethically, I'm not sure if
Mhm.
you are like obligated almost to procreate, you know?
And yeah, it's not like this obligation. It's more or less just it's putting 1 to 1. The people who would
Mm,
contest what you're put forward and me in a sense as well are the same people who also put forward ethical obligation or ethical duty to do this as well. But
yeah.
it's like food for thought. It's a question to match a question.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, I think it's hard too. Maybe I'm going a little off here, but
No,
with
go for it.
how you mentioned people putting off having kids for work and whatever the reason may be, putting it off until later years. Um, and I think, oh, I know we talked about a little bit about like birth rates dropping and things like that. I think that might be one of the biggest reasons because
Mhm.
biologically, we, at least women especially, are meant to have children a lot younger, like almost in teenage years is how it used to be. And then, it's gone up a little bit, but I think the average age is probably around 30 now. And you see so many people nowadays that do struggle with these fertility issues that um, you didn't see near as much in the past. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons. And this definitely a little controversial, but I think that what we eat every day, what's put in our food, and I think the amount of young girls as young as 12, 13 years old are put on birth control for there's several reasons, whether it's for a crazy cycle or acne or anything like that, but they're put on these things from such a young age. And it's, synthetic hormones that are being pumped into your body. So when you take that, they end up taking it for years and years until they actually want to have kids. And then their body's all out of whack and they can't have them. And then
Mhm.
we see this rise in fertility issues and everyone seems to like wonder why. And I think that's a huge reason for it
I
because you didn't used to see that, when our parents were having kids or grandparents were having kids.
mhm. I think it's a fair question. I can't say conclusively, and I've
Yeah.
honestly I haven't seen studies or data, but it's a question worth
Hmm.
asking. Anything with hormone regulation and tempering with how the body regularly would operate, obviously could have ramifications of some sort. So it's a question worth asking, and
Yeah.
I think that's kind of like a sad tragedy that you point out too, because that is true that fertility issues are rising, and that's such like a terrible like thing. And it's not so much that personally the way I see it, if you want to put off starting a family because you want to pursue like education, I'm not saying you can't do both, so I'm not saying that. But if you
Right.
have the reason that that's why you're putting it off and you want to, get to this certain like income, you want to do this, you want to do, I totally get and support that. It's just a shame of it is that you're saying now is like when they try to start a family a little later on and they're running into these issues, it's terrible. You hate to see that because it's not like there's all this time to like really you put all this
Yeah.
time planning for this moment and then
Right. Yeah. It's kind of like a ticking clock. And, you know, going to college and then a lot of people nowadays go to get masters and go on
mhm,
after that. And you put it off and put it off. And I don't think a lot of people realize that although it's normal now to be having kids in your 30s, that's biologically not normal for us. And so I think that's why a lot of people
hmm.
do struggle. And it's a shame. But I don't think enough people realize or even know that, which is a big problem.
So question to ask you, do you think there should be more resources to support starting a family at a younger age? I don't know what those resources like I say resources, like I know exactly what I'm referring to, but I guess more so a cultural support. And this kind of goes into like the nuclear family as well. With the nuclear family is something that started like semi recently, like in I want to say the 50s or the 40s, post World War II, when people migrated to more urbanized cities and a husband and wife historically bought a home, had children. But before that, like if you go back to like the 1700s and even 1800s, say, you'll see that it was like a traditional family, and that included like a much larger household where there'd be people there to take care of the children, such as like so it'd be like the mother, the father, children, but also say the father's like brother and his family, or the father's
Hmm.
mother and dad and mom. So I wonder when I tie in resources and to make this bring this back in now is a lot of the reasons why people probably put up a family is just the responsibility it would take to kind of maintain and provide a stable home. So maybe not like say there should be more resources in society, but more of a supportive feel towards it, starting a family, like maybe knowing that there'd be people in your life and having that, and maybe trying to prioritize that, knowing that you got people in your life that could help you out, and or just I don't know, I mean family members too. But
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think it's a fine line because it's not that you want to promote having kids younger or before you're
yeah.
ready,
Mm-hmm.
but you do want to make sure that young men and women are just aware that, you know, you could struggle if you put it off until you're 35. Because, I mean, I think after 35, any woman that's pregnant is considered high risk because they're like old when
Mm-hmm.
you're really not. But for childbearing, you are. So I think, definitely not to encourage it at all, but just to make people aware that, if you have plans of wanting a family and that's a goal in your life, then you should know that you may struggle later on if
Mm-hmm.
if you don't make it a priority sooner.
Yeah, I think that's probably better said than what I mentioned about resources. Yeah, about just putting that awareness out there, that just
Absolutely.
making people. I think that's so huge too, in like America and just society in general. Like, not maybe promoting something that I was kind of hinting at, but instead
Hmm.
putting awareness, just giving people the knowledge to make educated decisions, so they can make the
Exactly.
best decision for themselves and have the power to do so, and not have to, I don't know, find out when it's too late.
Right, because like you said, the nuclear family, traditionally is a big close-knit family that may even all live together, extended family, etc. And so for somebody that has that kind of support and is in a stable, loving relationship, they may say, okay, I'm ready to have a
Mhm,
baby at 23. But for another person that doesn't have that much support or as big of a family, um, and is in an unstable relationship, then that's a whole different story.
mhm,
So again, you just want to make people aware so that they could then make educated decisions for their own life, their own situation.
for sure. And yeah, I think that's well said. When it comes to what you see on, say, a daily basis, what are some things you weren't kind of expecting as a mother? Like, I'm sure you knew they'll come with its fair bit of challenges on a daily basis, but what are some of the things you've found surprising?
So I'd say probably the biggest thing, which maybe shouldn't be surprising because I do
Hmm.
think that it's talked about a lot, but I guess I just didn't realize the truth behind it until I experienced it, was um, the idea of what a lot of people call mom guilt. And so, mom guilt essentially is just feeling like no matter what you do, you're not doing enough for your kid, they're not happy enough, and you feel guilty in a way. Like, what could I do more? What could I do better? Um, and I feel like I did often see a lot of people talk about this, like, oh, I'm going out with my friends for one night. I feel such mom guilt.
Hmm.
And to be honest, I would be like, come on, you're with them all the time. Like, go enjoy yourself. But now that I experience it, it is just so much easier said than done. Um, and I often say this jokingly is like, you almost can't win because when you're with your child, it's like, okay, I would do anything for like a half-hour break right now. But then like a few weeks ago, I went on a vacation to Florida with my sisters, and the whole time
Hmm.
I just missed him and felt guilty. So I joke about it because, again, I love being a mom, but it's like you can't win. You're with them and you need a break, and then you're away, and it's like this guilt nagging at you the whole time. So I definitely think the mom guilt thing was something that was way more prevalent, is way more prevalent in my life now than I ever thought it would be before
Hmm.
becoming a mom. And even after I knew I was expecting, I never worried about that, but it definitely affects my life a lot now.
Gotcha. And would you say having, I think you mentioned this, may have not, but having that kind of like supportive environment does make this kind of like a place where you feel comfortable to go on these vacations and good to, raise a child? Like how, I guess I'm getting more direct, to be more direct, like the importance of being home with your child, like speaking to that, and how you mentioned earlier that parents will kind of, if they can't because of their financial commitments or their jobs, they'll need to like put their kid in daycare, and you've seen it in colleges working from like 6 to 6 about.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so do you prioritize that on like, in your life and for your child, like just being there when you can, and obviously like barring vacations and the time you take for and you need for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I do work part-time right now, so my dream job is to be a stay-at-home mom. I know that's not for everybody. That's eventually what I would love to be able to do. Right
Hmm.
now, I do need to work part-time, which is fine, but I am super fortunate to have big family that lives close by that I can trust with my child. And so I don't need to put him in daycare or anything like that, which I I thank God for every day, because I know there's so many people that are not in that same situation and not as fortunate as me in that area. So for me, I would love to be with him 24/7 with breaks here and there. But even though I do have to work right now, I am able to feel comfortable and secure that he is safe and happy. He's with, most of the time, his grandmothers. So again, I'm very blessed in that area that I don't have to go to work and like worry every day or feel as guilty, because I know he's with people that he knows and that love him.
Hmm.
But it's definitely hard, especially as they get older and they recognize when you're leaving, and they cry when you leave, and I mean that makes you feel terrible. So I can't imagine having to leave him then,
Hmm.
at a daycare with somebody he doesn't know as well.
Yeah. And you said your child, he's 1.5, correct? You
Hmm.
mentioned.
Yes.
So has he said his first words yet? Is that, I don't know the timeline
Yeah.
for that. That
Yeah, no,
happens. Okay.
it's so different for every kid. He does talk quite a lot now, which is like amazing, but also makes it harder when you have to leave
Yeah,
them
that's what I was gonna
because
ask.
yeah, he understands so much more now. Like he knows even from the time I'm like picking up my keys and putting on my shoes, and he starts like with the waterworks, and I'm like, "Oh, you're killing me."
I can only imagine. And you hear that with families too, or like your own child, really, whether the father and the mother, with your own child, it's a love that is ineffable. Can't describe it. I felt nothing like it before in your entire life. Were you expecting that? And was that feeling, true? Was that feeling greater than you expected? How can you run me through that?
Yeah, I mean, you hear it all the time. You don't
Hmm.
know until you have kids. You
Yeah.
don't know until you have kids, which is absolutely the truth. Like I do want to say one thing that I think a lot of women are hard on themselves about is like when you first have your baby. And this is dependent so much on everybody's experience because every labor and birth is so different. Um, but I feel like women are hard on themselves when they don't think they feel like an immediate connection with their baby, like right away, like some innate thing. And they're like, oh my God, like, is something wrong with me? Do I not love my baby? Like,
Hmm.
that's, and I think that's way more normal than people think. Sometimes it takes a little bit, but it absolutely is indescribable and something you can't explain to somebody that hasn't experienced it. I feel like it really shows in a lot of the small moments in life that you would think would not mean as much to you. And then when you experience them, like for example, when Liam got his first haircut and Liam Sr. and I took him
Mhm.
and we sat him in the chair and the lady starts cutting his hair and we looked at each other and we both had like tears in our eyes. And it was like they were
Mhm.
just cutting his hair. It was like so silly. But when you have a child, it's just your whole life revolves around them. Like they're just your everything. So even the smallest of things really have an effect on you just because of that unconditional love. It's really crazy.
Mhm. And someone who doesn't have a child and doesn't have a family obviously can't like make that connection. But trying to just picture moments, like moments in just anyone's life where you really kind of like feel it and you live in that moment. Do you say that happens more often than not now? Like having a child and having family, like moments where like the sensation of it is really just hitting home and you're just present and it's not just a pass by. If that makes sense.
Absolutely. I think especially because they grow so fast and it goes by so fast. Even in these tiny moments, it's almost like you look at them and like the world will just freeze for a second because you just know that like next week they're going to be a week older and they're going to be so much bigger already. They grow so fast and you want to like be able to just freeze that moment of like if they're doing something silly and they're cracking up, it's just like,
Hmm.
oh, I never want this moment to end. I just want to keep
Yeah.
them here this little forever. And I think being a parent, at least for me, has made me more intentional about trying to be more present and living in the moment because I don't want to miss any of those little things.
That reminds, and I was just writing that down. I want to bring it reminds me like parents and pictures, like growing up, especially my
Mhm.
grandma, before she passed, always would like to take pictures. I'm like, get that camera. Like
Yep.
I was only like 9, so I was a
Yeah.
little different and wasn't thinking. But I was like, get that camera in my face. Like it's
Right.
Christmas Eve. Please stop.
Yeah.
And yeah, I can like start to picture that now, even like without family, just feeling those moments with friends or family too, and just wanting to like savor those moments. But I can only imagine that with like a child when my voice has been cracking so much past 2 days, but
You're fine.
but having that with a child and like every first you kind of just want to savor and keep forever. And
Yeah,
I
for
wonder if
sure.
yeah, if growing up your experience was similar with pictures all the time for any kind of get
Oh my
together
God.
and yeah, you're
It's so funny
mhm,
you say that because my mom is like infamous in my family for this. Like,
mhm,
we'll be at a family party and everybody's like sitting around the table, like mid bite,
yeah.
and she's like snapping pictures. And you're like, you better not put that anywhere. Like, I'm eating, like,
Mhm,
just at the worst times. And like, you're worried about what you look like. But then when you look back at them, and it's like when we look back at pictures of our parents and grandparents,
mhm,
because you couldn't even see the pictures on a screen then, they were so much more candid. And so I actually love that now. I think as a mom, I appreciate it more that she's always done that and took like those candid moments that you would
mhm,
never think about again or even remember if she
yeah,
hadn't.
for sure.
So, and I'm definitely more guilty of it now. There's like a funny meme that's like, I have like 1,000 pictures of my kid, and every single one he's moved like 1 inch, but I can't seem to delete any of them because you just have to keep them all.
Yeah.
But it's definitely the truth.
For sure. And it's funny when you say like the pictures with like mid bite or doing something odd because there's pictures that similar when family visits, mom will take them and she'll play them live. And you'll hear me or my brother and be like, "Is she serious? Like, is she seriously
Right.
doing doing this right
Yep,
now?"
that sounds like us too.
But no, that's great. That's honestly fantastic. I think, and one of the reasons why I want to have this conversation too is I don't know. I feel it as you did, like, starting a family and even my own life, a lot of the issues I discuss, like, I contend with myself. It's not the grandstand. It's not to kind of pass judgment on society or any individual in particular about doing something I think they should. It's like starting a family is something like I look forward to, but I don't really have much thought to. And that's why I wanted to kind of like connect with you and really spark that conversation because I do feel it just in society. And I feel like I'm influenced by it as well of not prioritizing that. and time goes by fast. Like, put biology to the side, like people grow up so fast. You hear that all the time.
Oh my God, yeah.
And I was hearing this one video from a coach to a soccer player. He was like, and the coach was saying to the player in this league that yesterday I was 20 and today I'm 50. And he just repeated that a couple times, but it's so
Yeah,
true.
it's the
Like,
truth. It
mhm,
absolutely is. Like when you look back, things that happened 10 years ago, you're like, wait a second, that
mhm,
feels like 2 years ago. Like, how has it been a decade since that? Like, it's really crazy. And I do believe since having a child, it goes like twice as fast because
mhm.
they just grow so quick. And like, I guess it's especially because you're always looking for like the next milestone. And then before you know it, they're like hitting the next one and the next one. And they just keep getting older. It's happening way too fast.
What's a milestone that you're looking forward to though, with your son?
Hmm. So he does a lot now. He walks, he talks. Um, Next milestone. I don't ever want him to go to school and leave me, so I'm not looking forward to that. I'm excited for him to start sports. He'll be old enough by the fall to play soccer. So I think that'll
Nice.
be fun, like his first real sport. That'll be entertaining. Watch a bunch of little 2-year-olds running around everywhere. So
You can play
I'm looking
soccer at
forward to that.
2?
So they don't technically play like games,
Yeah.
but it's like a skills
Mhm,
thing. Everybody brings a ball, they run around, they put some cones out. Nobody's actually doing anything right.
mhm.
Most of them are crying, but it's it's still fun for them.
I got you. No,
Yeah.
that's exciting. Soccer was the first sport I played too, so I remember playing like at a
Yeah.
young age.
I think me too.
Yeah, definitely. I don't remember being 2, but I remember not
Me
that I
either.
would obviously, but
Right.
more so just that was the first sport that I was enrolled in, and that's like another thing that I really appreciate about our conversation so far, and as we kind of begin like to wrap up, but just asking like the questions about starting a family too, like when the talking about ethical responsibilities or just ethical achievements, say, if that even makes sense to people. But it's more so just having like discussions about it and really just thinking about it. As mentioned, it's not that I feel this one way or another. I understand. I think you do as well, as you mentioned, understand both sides. But when you think one side is kind of domineering the discourse and the conversation, that's not good. There should be, it's not going to be a 50-50 balance, but there should be some conversations featuring both perspectives, and
Yeah,
you don't
absolutely.
you don't hear too many about those on the differing side, the side that you're putting forward, encouraging it if it's suitable to your situation and if it's the right time for you, and not to let fear get in the way or certain people who may be bad faith actors.
Yeah, for sure.
How what's one message you would like to like leave people with or give people in general about starting a family, things to know, especially just people who are considering it, say?
Yeah, I guess I would say I can speak more for mothers specifically, obviously, because I am one.
Hmm.
Um, but I would say just follow your heart, really. I know that sounds so cliche. That's like the most cliche thing I could possibly say, but to be honest, like when I graduated college and was ready to go into the workforce, like I was not all that enthusiastic about it. It was not like my dream life to be doing that. And so it just so happened that I ended up, you know, becoming a mother, and it is what I feel like is my purpose in life. But I think whether you want to or not, there's a huge push these days for women, to be empowered and to go out and
Hmm.
start a business and achieve their goals, which I think is so amazing.
For sure.
But I also think there's a negative stigma around being the traditional stay-at-home mom homemaker, and I just want to say that there's nothing wrong with that if that is your dream in life. Um, it's amazing to go out and be in the workplace, and you can change the world in the workplace for sure. But like I said, for me personally, and I think it's just super important in life in general, is that family is just the center of life. So whether you want to work or not, don't feel bad if you don't want to and you want to stay home and raise your children, because that is one of the, if not the most important job in the world. You're raising the next generation. um yeah, so just don't feel bad about it, because there is a big push right now for women to go out and get out of the house. But if you don't want to, and you do have that more traditional view, and that's your dream, then just go for it.
Appreciate that. I guess one
Mm.
final question that came across my
Mhm.
mind is, what would you tell the Colleen before she found out she's pregnant? Leading up to that moment, and
Mhm.
just one piece of advice you would give her.
Oh goodness, that's a good question. I guess I would just say I was in like kind of a weird time in my life where I really didn't know what I wanted to do, and I feel like I was stressed about it all the time. Like, oh my god, what am I going to do with my life? I'm graduating. Um, and just to be patient and trust that one way or another, whether it's the way you planned or not, everything will work out. And to just keep going, because there is so much more to life now than I realized at that point. Like, so much, again, more purpose and fulfillment and happiness than at that point I ever thought that I would experience.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably it.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate your
Thank
time
you.
today, and I appreciate the insight too. And as
Yeah,
mentioned,
thank you.
yeah, of course, and as mentioned, I think it was good conversation that kind of questions maybe the dominating force in this voice in this topic. So once again, thanks for your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course. All right. See you guys.